Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video should have been uploaded about a week ago. Unfortunately, I've been fighting a little cold, and hence why this video is late. So this is a Valentine's Day card. Again, it's late, but the way I create this card, it can be utilized for different occasions just by changing out the sentiment. For this card, I'm pulling in several of these small Lawn Fawn stamps, and I'm going to create a slimline design. To begin, I'm taking a piece of Nina's Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I'm going to align all of the stamps that I plan to use on my card into my Misty. And then I can just pick up all of these stamps at once with the door of my Misty. Here I'm taking some Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm just inking up all of the images. I do go ahead and stamp out all of the images a couple of times just to get a nice dark outline. Once the stamping is complete, I'm going to use my Copic markers to color in all of the images. Okay, so this part of the video is sped up quite a bit, but in a nutshell, I've pulled out all of the different shades of gray markers to color in these images. I will have a list of all of the color combinations that I used over on my blog, which I will link to down below. So for now, I'm just going to turn on some music while I finish coloring, and then I will come back to put this card together. After I finished coloring all of the images, I die cut them out using coordinating dies. So to create the Slimline card, I'm using this die by Trinity Stamps. This one's called the Slimline Card Series, Stitched Card Panels and Windows. Now I've left all of the pieces of my die in place so that I can get a thin frame in between the outer die and the smallest of the inner dies. Of course, you can take yours all apart and use them any way you want, as the set contains 4 nested dies that make up 3 different size stitched card panels, as well as the 3 square windows on the inside of the die piece itself. I've added some painter's tape on the back of my card panel because I kind of want to keep all of the pieces in place after die cutting so that I can get some ink blending done on the front. So now that I've die cut this panel, I've kind of got it all secured back there, and I'm taking a blender brush and applying the ink across the bottom half of the card panel. This is Distress ink in Marigold, dry Marigold, and this is relatively a light color, so it does take me a little bit of work to get enough of the ink onto my card panel. I even tried switching from a blender brush to a foam applicator, thinking that maybe that would add the color a little more quicker, but it just took time to layer up the ink depth that I was looking for. Continuing on the top half, I've ink blended Worn Lipstick Distress ink, and once again I'm just adding layers of ink, making sure to blend the line where the 2 colors meet. Next, I'm taking a Distress spray bottle and I'll spritz some water on top of my panel, and then I'll blot the panel dry with a clean paper towel. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of more texture to that panel by adding some of the white ink that I've watered down, and then I'm taking a watercolor brush to splatter the panel. While I was ink blending earlier, I also blended a piece of blueprint sketch, and then I'm taking the waves die by Lawn Fawn, and I will die cut some waves out from that ink blended panel, as well as from some vellum. Before I can begin adhering anything to the panel, I'm using one of the square die cuts to measure out the waves for the bottom half of the panel, and then I can just trim out what I need for each individual square. So here I've picked out my sentiment, and again this card was created for Valentine's Day, but just simply switching out the sentiment, this card can easily be adapted to any different occasion. I'm lining up the inner panel inside the Misty, and then I'm using Versamark or Versafine ink to stamp out the sentiment in the bottom half of the panel. Okay, so at this point I have all of my components and I can start adhering them to the card base. I am using liquid adhesive to attach the waves die cut to the square panel, and then I'm just running some additional adhesive to the edges so that I can attach the vellum on top. Anything hanging over the square panel, I can just trim up with my scissors. And then I'll do the same thing for the other 2 square panels. I also die cut an additional frame using this Slimline die from black cardstock, And then I adhere the rest of the frames to a white card base. And here I'm lightly traced where the square panels are so that I know where I can adhere them. And then I'm just adding those in place with some liquid adhesive. Once I have all those secured in place, I'm adding the nested frame that I've popped up on some foam tape to the card panel. And all that was left to do was to adhere my characters to the background panel, which I've used some foam squares to pop them up. And that will complete my card. If you've enjoyed this project, be sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.